You've probably heard the rule, 2 straight quarters of shrinking GDP and the economy's in a recession. It's clean, it's easy to remember, and it isn't actually the definition. The real one is messier, and that mess is exactly what explains why an economy can be in a recession for months before anyone will say so out loud. Start with where the 2 quarters idea comes from. GDP, gross domestic product, is the single broadest measure of what an economy produces. When it shrinks 2 quarters back to back, that's an obvious countable sign things are going backwards. Some countries, like the UK and Canada, actually use that as their official, technical recession line. So the rule isn't crazy. It's just not how the United States does it. Here, there's no law that defines a recession, and the government doesn't declare one. That job falls to a private nonprofit, the National Bureau of Economic Research, and a small committee of economists inside it. They don't run a formula. They make a judgment call. They look at how deep the decline is, how widely it's spread across the whole economy, and how long it lasts. Depth, diffusion, duration. A sharp drop in one industry isn't a recession. A broad slump that drags down jobs, incomes, spending, and production at once, that is. And here's the part that surprises people. GDP isn't even the number they lean on hardest. In recent decades, the committee has put the most weight elsewhere, on real personal income minus government transfers and on the number of people working on payrolls. Put simply, are people earning and are people employed? Jobs and income more than raw output. Once you see that, the 2 quarters rule falls apart. The 2001 recession never had 2 shrinking quarters in a row, not a single back-to-back pair, and it's still officially a recession. The 2020 downturn was the opposite case. Brutal, but so short it barely fit the window the rule needs, and nobody seriously doubts it counted. The committee has even called recessions before a second negative quarter ever printed. The rule of thumb nails the easy cases and misses the interesting ones. There's one more catch, and it's the big one. Because the call is a careful judgment weighed across all that data, it lands late. The committee dated the start of the 2008 recession to December of 2007, but didn't announce it until nearly a year later. Officially, the economy was sliding for months, while the verdict was still being argued. A recession is mostly something you recognize in the rearview mirror. So what do people watch in the meantime? Not GDP on its own. They watch the job market and incomes, because that's what the official call leans on. They watch leading signals, like the yield curve, when short-term interest rates climb above long-term ones, which has shown up before most modern recessions. And a newer one, the SOM rule, which trips when the unemployment rate's 3-month average rises about half a point off its recent low. None of these is the definition. They're early warning gauges for a verdict that only arrives later. So here's the honest version. A recession isn't a box that ticks the moment 2 GDP numbers come in red. It's a judgment about how deep, how broad, and how long the damage runs, built more on jobs and incomes than on output, and usually made official long after it started. The 2 quarters rule is a handy shorthand. Just don't mistake the shorthand for the real thing, because the real thing is what actually tells you how much an economy is hurting. We cover the markets on the days that actually matter, with explainers when it helps. Hit subscribe so you don't miss it. We'll see you next time.